Peace, peace, peace. Greetings, peace, love, and light. Peace to you and yours. Welcome back to another episode of Sunday Service Mineral Ministry Presents. And I am your host, Pope Pablo. Welcome back. You're near the limit of a recorded music can be shared. All right. Yeah. I gotta lower that. My Instagram is glitching because they are registering that as recorded music. Om Mani Padme Om. That's the opening mantra. If you participate in about 10 seconds of humming daily, then you will be reducing oxidative stress on your body and creating nitric oxide, right? Which is very healthy and healing. So it's highly recommended that you find 10 to 15 seconds out of your daytime and just participate with humming. You know what I'm saying? The healing nature of humming can't be stressed enough. That's something that we all have the capability and the capacity to do. Um, if I could give you some highlights and some tips on how to fast track that, to amplify it for yourself, lock the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth like that and create a microcosmic orbit. You're locking your tongue into your circuit board, and that is allowing you to amplify that vibration to your upper room. You know what I'm saying? To the upper chambers of your brain, of your skull, right? It's allowing you to turn a lamp on in the darkness, the crevices of your cave, which is your skull, right? And when you start vibrating the waters that your brain sits in, okay, that particular vibratory state of your brain being in a stasis state, but now being surrounded by the vibration of the waters of noon that are going to be imprinted, especially if you are humming with the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, you're doing an om hum, right? The cymatics on that particular design, that will be encasing your brain is a very healing frequency. You know what I'm saying? Yes, interstellar vibrations. So it's highly recommended that you attune your vessel, you attune yourself daily with a practice of humming, right? Doing your mantras, doing your chants, bringing your body to a particular stasis. Welcome back, family. This is episode 139, and today's class is titled Romanticized Religions. Romanticized religions. I can point out three very distinct ways that Christianity itself has been hijacked by Rome, by the Roman antics of Rome, and the majority of what we have been presented and introduced as religion has been romanticized. Right? We have received it through the prism of Rome. It has been tainted. It has been tainted by Rome itself. And for some people, that's cool because they don't understand what Rome represents. Um, but for others, it's somewhat of a no-go. Understanding what Rome represents and not wanting to be under the auspices of Rome or the control of Rome, and definitely, don't want to participate with the romanticizing of religion, the romanticizing of religion, the Roman antics of religion, which is all about control, which is all about conquest and separation, right? Domination and not dominion. Okay. So if you're new to Mineral Ministries or here Sunday service, we read scripture in accordance with the Gregorian calendar date. So today is 11:30, November 30th. 11:30 is how it reads on the calendar. So we'll traverse through scripture, right? And we will touch on all of the 11:30 scriptures. Chapter 11, verse 30. When we encounter places where there is no 11:30, we'll reduce it and do 11:3s if necessary. Okay, just so we can get a cohesive understanding of scripturally what can we use today from the book um, to decipher where we are at on the timeline. I was watching a Bobby Hemmett presentation yesterday, and Bobby was adamant about the Bible not being of any historical import because the stories, and this is again, when you find a teacher and that teacher saying the things that you have said to yourself numerous of times when no one else was around, but you didn't have no backboards to bounce it off of. And then you find these teachers, and these teachers are saying the things that you've said to yourself in private and quiet when there was really nobody qualified to share it with because they would have looked at you like you was batshit crazy per se. That is that's what I find in our master teachers that is so confirming for us is that many a times they have been able to confirm my own inner suspicions. So when I was hearing the Bible, when I picked up the Bible earlier in life, I was always like, this is not about the past. This is about, I'm like, somebody from the future must have came and deposited this account into the past, but it's about the present. And if you read it from that perspective, you wouldn't be so lost. But if you attempt to make sense of it as if it already happened, then you're really going to be thrown off. So I was able to make sense of it in real time by making contrasts and comparisons to things that we were going through. So Pharaoh in this time would be this system. It would be the administration. It would be the president. You know what I'm saying? Um, and Egypt of then would be the Egypt. It would be the America of now, right? A welfare system that welcomed all other countries in to show support. That had many idol gods, if you will. Americanism is the biggest religion. Um, and there's plenty of idols here, right? Too many to name. Um, so with that being said, yeah, Bobby was like, the way that you should look at scripture, you should look at it as if it's taking place now. It's prophetic. You know what I'm saying? And I totally agree. Prophetic fulfillment is what he speaks on. And I'm like, yeah, that's right in alignment with how I see it. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, that's my methodology for observing scripture, turning dead letter religion into a living testament by being able to, see how it applies to the here and now, especially if they're telling us that salvation is contingent upon us understanding scripture, um, being obedient to the word, right? And then being in compliance. Now, normally and naturally, that's never been a person that I've been. I'm just being facetious to say, if this is what we're supposed to be doing, goddamn it, then where's the instructions? You know what I'm saying? Why has nobody given us the right direction or the right instructions on how to properly be in tune with scripture? Okay. So we find ourselves here doing it for ourselves, um, and attempting to make sense out of nonsense. So we'll start right here in Genesis. Genesis has an 11:30, so we'll qualify that. All right. I'm gonna turn down this mantra, and we're gonna get it started. All right. Hopefully everybody's cool. Y'all all right? Y'all cool? Started just a little bit, after our starting time, but we are here nonetheless. And I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be here. And I welcome you as well. So let's get started. Genesis 11:30. This is called Terah's descendants. Okay. Um, and Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. So they're speaking about Abraham before he was Abraham, when he was just Abram. You know what I'm saying? He was just Colonel Abrams. Um, so we're starting all the way back then. Abram's wife was named Sarah, and Nahor's wife was named Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, who was the father of both Milcah and Ishka. But Sarah was barren; she had no children. Okay, and Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, the wife of Abram, and they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Haran, they settled there. So they're giving us the genealogy and the trajectory of the quote unquote forefather of these monotheistic religions, right? They're called Abrahamic religions because they come from Abram. But as we can see from the text, Abram wasn't himself Jewish. He wasn't a Hebrew, right? He came from Ur of the Chaldeans, okay? In so many words, the interpretation for that is Babylon. Okay, so he came from Babylonian strongholds. He was from Babylon. He's Babylonian. Hence the fact that nowadays, when we see the iteration or version of quote unquote Jews that we have come to know as Jewish people, they're operating in accordance with the Babylonian Talmud, right? These people are Babylonian. But even when they speak about Ur of Chaldea, then we have to go into the science of who the Chaldeans are, and we have to also research who the Phoenicians are. If you are looking to get the um, ethno appropriate, right? If you want to know who these people are ethnically, you know what I'm saying? In accordance with the historical accounts of who these people were on the planet that called themselves Chaldean at one point, or Phoenician. You know what I'm saying? And these are major players. This ties back into everything, right? But we definitely owe it to ourselves to get to know a little bit more about Abram before he becomes Abraham, and what traditions he naturally brings with him from Babylon, and how those traditions have found themselves into romanticized religion. romanticized religion. You know what I'm saying? Which has become a consortium or conglomeration of a bunch of more antiquated older religions that came before Judaism, right? And they become a hodgepodge presented to us as this breakthrough religion, this breakthrough monotheistic religion. Whereas, once again, like I said, Abram comes from Babylon, okay? And later on becomes Abraham. Um, and why is this so interesting? You know, with this administration stance on immigration, um, it's very worthwhile watching if we make the comparisons to say that this is new Rome, this is new Egypt, right? The America, US for that matter. They're replicating a lot of the plays from the past, and they're making a lot of missteps as well. And we can see them. Let's do a cross reference. Genesis 16:1. Now Abram's wife Sarah had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So Sarah said to Abram, "Look now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Please go to my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. So as much as they love, once again, to castigate Cometians, as much as they love to castigate the Egyptians and say that they're so evil and corrupt, there was so much they benefited so much from the Kemetic welfare state, right? If you look at Kemet then, as you look at the U.S. now, a land that's supposed to be abundant, a land that is looked upon today as Babylon, but people still come and worship at the altar of her, right? They still give their firstborns to her, like Abram was willing to do for his, to show his homage to Yahweh. Um, they, you know, the they had to come to her to eat. They had to come to her to sleep. They had to come to her for cover. They had to come to her for her daughters. But yet, have the audacity, every opportunity they get, to talk crazy about Kemet. You know what I'm saying? That's something that we should always keep in mind, right? And it's the same today, right? As many benefits as people may come over here to receive, they're always still going to talk crazy about America, right? And as much as America, like the God of the Old Testament, wants you to pay homage, right? As much as America, like the God of the Old Testament, is jealous of you worshiping other quote unquote countries as if they were deities and gods, right? America wants all of the claim of fame to herself, right? She wants you to break yourself at her altar. She wants you to pay homage every opportunity and do it with no uncertain tones or terms, no affixed terms. She's like, nigga, just give me my respect. You know what I'm saying? And don't put no cut on it, right? Unwilling to hear anyone's complaints about why they don't give a wholehearted homage or respect to this quote unquote harlot of Babylon. Let's move it on to Exodus, right? We're gonna go to the next one. This is Exodus 11:3. There's no 11:30 in Exodus, so we are gonna reduce it to the threes, right? The plague of the firstborn foretold, right? We find ourselves right back speaking about the firstborns, the plagues of the firstborns. Um, God being a serial murderer, a mass murderer, and taking the firstborn seeds. How cruel. How cruel. Now announce to the people that men and women alike should ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Cometians. Moreover, Moses himself was highly regarded in Kemet by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moses declared, this is what the Lord says. About midnight, I will go throughout Egypt, And I guess, the rest of that is take the firstborn seeds or what have you. Um, Exodus 12:36, and the Lord gave the people such favor in the sight of the Egyptians that they granted to their request. In this way, they plundered the Egyptians, right? What a way to pay homage. What a way to say thank you to a people that took you in and housed you, clothed you, fed you, protected you, allowed you to practice your religion, allowed you to flourish amongst them. You know what I'm saying? What a way to pay homage. What a way to be a rightful house guest in somebody else's country, in somebody else's backyard, only for you to talk crazy about their gods who have provided them with abundance and given them the leverage where they was living in abundance enough to be able to take you in and take care of you. Leviticus 11:30, clean and unclean animals. The following creatures that move along the ground are unclean for you: the mole, the mouse, any kind of great lizard, the gecko, the monitor lizard, the common lizard, the skink, and the chameleon. These animals are unclean for you amongst all of the crawling creatures. Whoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. That's crazy. Yeah, I never heard of nobody making, what I'm saying, chameleon souffle or curry lizard. I haven't heard it yet. I don't put nothing past people, but that just has not made it to my desk as of yet. You know what I'm saying? And nobody was like, "Yeah, we're going to get brown stew gecko." I haven't heard it yet. I don't doubt it. I just haven't heard it yet. So they've been doing good with these commandments thus far. Thus far. You know what I'm saying? As much as reptilian talk I be hearing this shit, I ain't never heard nobody saying, "Yeah, y'all, we." You got any of that tandoori lizard? Nah, I don't doubt it. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of crazy shit. Um, and you go to Asia, they fucking some rats and some mice up, right? They be skinning the rodents. So I grew up off the movie V. Y'all grew up on V. They was throwing them rats back. They was throwing them rats back like they was hors d'oeuvres and shit. I was like, don't have me grow up and seeing that in real life because I'm about to lose it. Acts 10:12, right? It contained all kind of four-footed animals and reptiles of the earth, as well as birds of the air. Then a voice said to him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "No, Lord," Peter answered, "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." You know, and one of the major demarcation points, one of the major differences between Judaism and Christianity, once again, as I've been able to read and decipher the code, is that with the coming of quote unquote Jesus, where he comes to change, because he has to change something. When you establish a new covenant, you do away with the old covenant, and the old covenant is connected to old commandments, old contracts, right, and old understandings. He came with a new dietary law because he was a herbivore for the most part. So if you are to be Christ-like, right, and if you are what you eat, then you have to, for the most part, follow the dietary rules of your prophet if you want to be like your prophet, not just walk in the way of your prophet, but you also have to imitate and emulate how that prophet also lived their life. And eating is a main part of it. You know what I'm saying? Jesus was to come about and change the dietary laws and rules of the quote unquote people that he initially comes to. There's a lot of reasons why they wanted to get him up out of there, and they sent them to the Romans so they can romanticize religion and do away with the goddamn Messiah if you will, right? Again, in accordance with this narrative, Jesus was a pescatarian, respectfully. Again, he multiplied and fed him fish, but did it say that he ate the fish? Right? He was an herbivore. He came with a whole different dietary plan, and he came to challenge animal sacrifice. So Jesus was the first Peter spokesman, the first one, the first one, right? Let's go to Numbers. Um, well, I said something wrong. Did I say something wrong? Work with me, y'all. Help me out. I never said it. I can't be wrong, right? I'm here to learn as well. So if I said something that is not in league with what you understand, um, yeah, I'm willing to hear you out. But for the most part, that's the way that I understand the play. And I've read several different accounts of the narrative. And one of the main things, that he emphasized is that he was changing the dietary laws. You know what I'm saying? And he himself did not eat in the ways in which his predecessors ate. And if you're going to emulate or imitate something, if you are what you eat, then you want to look at the ways that the thing that you're imitating or emulating also ate. You know what I'm saying? So if he created or if he was a look, I'm sitting up here having a conversation about this shit as if it's not allegorical. Let's keep it going. We're in Numbers 11:30. 70 elders anointed, right? Uh, Moses replied, "Are you jealous on my account? I wish that all of the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would place his spirit on them." Then Moses returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel, right? Moses said he wished that everybody was a prophet, so the burden wouldn't have to solely be on him to be the foreteller or the forebearer of news and information. If everyone had to give, you know what I'm saying? Jesus said to eat anything because food that goes into the stomach and out as poo cannot defile the man. Okay. Moses, we'll do a cross reference before we move on. Exodus 18:25. Moses chose capable men from all Israel and made them heads over the people as leaders of thousands and hundreds of fifties and of tens, and they judged the people at all times. They would bring the difficult cases to Moses, but any minor issues they would judge themselves. So God deputizes, quote unquote, Moses as the law bringer. So he's like the Supreme Court. Then he deputizes others amongst them to be minor courts, right? Or magistrates, if you will, where he is the quote unquote the grand judge. Then there's a supreme judge. You feel me? And that supreme judge will be the Father himself, right? The grand judge would be the vicegerent on this plane of existence, would be, you know, Moses at his time would be equivalent to what the Pope would be today, if you will. And then there's all of these smaller courts, magistrates, and things of that nature, right? So he deputizes um, other members of the proverbial priesthood to be judges as well. Um, this is something again that you should not fall into, because the trick of this whole thing is judgment. Don't ever fall into judgment. You know what I'm saying? Because Man, you know not, right? So what gives you the right to judge if we'll never know? We never do know. We won't know until it's all over, because your quest here is, man, know thyself, right? The operative word is thyself. So who am I to judge you? And I don't know your plight. I don't know your story. I don't know your narrative. I don't know what led you to make the decisions that you make. I can't possibly know. I've exhausted all of my time and my efforts to know myself. So what would I look like attempting to be a subject matter expert in what it is that you know? So I can't judge. I don't have all of the facts. You know what I'm saying? I have to make a deferment, and I make a discernment, a deferment and a discernment. But judge ye not, because man can't possibly know. That's the trap. That's the trick down here in this prison planet. Once you fall into judgment, my nigga, then your heart is heavy as a brick. You know what I'm saying? Your heart is heavy as a brick, and you really are attempting to fulfill the capital G God's job. Play your position as the lowercase G, right? And master your own realms, master self, become a subject matter expert in being the master of self. Do the knowledge to self, do the gnosis to self. But it's impossible for you to judge somebody else, because you don't know all of the criteria that goes into the decision making of that person. You don't know the particulars, you don't know the scenarios. All of those things are hidden from us. You know what I'm saying? It's enough for you to figure you out, let alone judge somebody else. You can't see the blind side. So we're making um, inaccurate assumptions, and that levies extra weight on our heart. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes the heart heavy, when you are attempting to pretend as if you know. You don't know, right? Not for the sake of sounding deep. No, you don't know, right? So it more so is befitting for us to have discernment, right? But yeah, we're not the ultimate judge. So why even attempt to participate in such a farce? Okay. Uh, let's move to Deuteronomy's next. All right. Let's take it to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 11. Let's see. Do they have an 11:30? Yes, they do. Let's go to Deuteronomy 11:30. It's called a blessing and a curse. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess, you are to proclaim the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are not these mountains across the Jordan, west of the road towards the sunset, in the land of the Canaanites who lived in the Arabah opposite Gilgal, near the oak of Merah? For you are about to cross the Jordan and enter and possess the land that the Lord your God is giving you, when you take possession of it and settle in it. And of course, we know that that land that they're speaking of is still the land today that's in dispute. That's Palestine, right? There was triple, quadruple booked by the time he promised it to them. There was already people, there was residents there, right? Just like it is today. What an oversight on the behalf of God. Is God blind, like the Gnostics say that he is, that he could not see that, right? And why do you wait so long? If these is your children on your planet, right? Why don't they get first preference to their home? You know, why were your children homeless so many times on your planet? All right, we're gonna keep it moving. Let's go to Judges. Ironically, right? Funny enough, we find ourselves right in the book of Judges, 11:30. Judge Jeph Jephthah's tragic vow. Then the spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, then through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there he advanced against the Ammonites. Jephthah made the vow to the Lord, if indeed you will deliver the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out of the door of my house to greet me on my triumphant return from the Ammonites will belong to the Lord, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Right? So how did that play out? Right? Be very mindful of the vows that you make. You know what I'm saying? Be very, very mindful of the vows that you make. Who's ever been in a jam and you made that soul contract to get out of one, and the situation worked for you, then you had to uphold your part of the contract, your part of the bargain. Have you ever actively participated in something like that? I have. Well, you like, big homie, man. If you come through and your shit is like, oh, this is a miracle. If something happens, if a needle moves on this, goddamn it, I'm a believer. And you like, fuck it, man. What I got to lose? Let me roll the dice. Look, big homie, if you come through for me on this one, because you like, shit, I know that's not gonna happen. If you come through for me on this one, and nigga, I got you, man. Trust me when I tell you, I'm there for you. Bing! And the shit happens. And it's game on. Right? Have you shirked from the responsibility to uphold the vow that you made? Because that's a contract. Then are you able to now get into your time travel machine, go back to that period in time, right? And observe your life from the part and place where you didn't uphold your vow. How did things play out? How's your life been going forward? Do you need to revisit that vow? Is there something that you might need to clean up? And I'm literally talking to myself, but I'm speaking to y'all as well. Because I've been in them situations, and that's one of the reasons that I'm I'll keep it 100. Yeah, I'll keep it a stack. I'll keep it a stack with y'all. I don't want to tell a long ass story. Um, but I remember my last contract that I made like that. It was probably 2013. It was probably 2013, and I had and shout out to, there's a sister named out there named Rhonda. She can co-sign this narrative, and a brother named Kwame. I was living in LA, and I had a cachet. I had a bag full of jewelry, um, and I misplaced it. I just leave it at that. I misplaced it, and I remember the day was it was the Sunday that Easter fell on 420. You know what I'm saying? Easter had fell on 420, and yeah, I don't want to get into this long ass narrative. Let's just keep it as simple as I needed a miracle to happen for me, and it happened. And one of the promises that I made to the spirit, to the entity, was like, "Yo, if you come through for me on this situation, then I will proselytize. You know, uh, I will do my assignment. I'll teach this information to the degree that I was doing the research of it at the time, and I was very uncomfortable with it because I didn't know the approach. But spirit was heavy on me, and it was like, we want you to teach. We want you to teach it. We want you to teach this information. So, this is me upholding my end of the bargain, and it was very, it was a very uncomfortable transition to get to this place. But I'm here. I'm just doing my bidding because spirit came through. You know what I'm saying? Spirit came through on some miracle shit, and I had to bear witness to be like, there's something there. God damn it, I'm gonna tell it. There's something there. Feel me? Not the way that they have misused it, but there's something there, y'all. Deuteronomy 23:21. If you make a vow to the Lord your God, do not be slow to keep it, because he will surely require it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. But if you refrain from making a vow, you will not be guilty of sin. Be careful to follow through on what comes from your lips, because you have freely vowed to the Lord your God with your own mouth. You know what I'm saying? I'll repeat that. Um, but if you be careful to follow through on what comes from your lips, because you have freely vowed to the Lord your God with your own mouth. You know what I'm saying? We'll do another cross reference. Genesis 28:20. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and watch over me on this journey, and if he will provide me with food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I may return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone I have set up as a pillar will be the God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give you a tenth, right? A tithing. Um, yeah, yeah, you know, vows are real. And you can easily just be making a vow with yourself, consecrating and strengthening the resolve of your word. You can be bearing witness to yourself, to be making a vow to yourself, to see you know how real do you consider your own word, how real do you consider your relationship with the cosmos, how real do you see yourself as part of this integral design. So you have to uphold, you have to be the strength and the wherewithal to uphold said vow. um you have to hold your place as a node in this beautiful construct. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, it's not easy. Yes, a vote is in a yes, a vote. The etymology of the word vote is a vow. So a vote is a vow. And I also believe that when you purchasing power, to me, is also a vote. You know what I'm saying? You vote with your dollars as well. That's how I looked at it. Um, so my word, yeah, my very real, my very real testimony to you, family, is that there is a force. There is a um spiritual force that exists, and there are witnesses, right? Like how they say in scripture about you have angels that are transcribing and scribing what you say and what you do at all times, right? That's real. And your word is your bond, and you should do any and everything that you can do to uphold it. I have cleanup even as I'm speaking about this, and I'm thinking about some things that have transpired, before this year is out. I got cleanups that I need to do. I have stuff that I need to revisit. I have bonds that need to be strengthened. You know what I'm saying? I have vows that need to be revisited. Um, I have addicts that need to be cleaned out, allegorically speaking. Um, yeah, but the strength of the word, the realness of it, as you being your own relay system. You know what I'm saying? Like when you start saying shit that ain't true, when you start making vows that you don't keep, it weakens you. It creates gaps in your aura. It compromises who you are. You know what I'm saying? And it puts you in very uncompromising situations that you're going to have to dig 2 and 3 times harder to get yourself out of. So be very mindful of how you manage your vows, how you manage your mouth, right? Because truly, the power of life and death is definitely in the tongue. You know what I'm saying? And you can literally do yourself in. So be mindful, please. I'm in 1 Samuel 11:3. Saul defeats the Ammonites. But Nahash the Ammonite replied, I will make a treaty with you on one condition, that I may put out everyone's right eye and bring reproach upon all Israel. Hold off for 7 days, replied the elders of Jabesh, and let us send messengers throughout Israel. If there is no one to save us, we will surrender to you. When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and relayed these words in the hearing of the people, they all wept aloud. And also, don't allow yourself to be fooled by people, by wolves in sheep clothing. So they say, when in Rome, do as Romans do, right? And we're looking at this whole aspect of romanticized religion. These people don't keep treaties, they don't make treaties and keep them. They don't speak vows and hold them near and dear to the heart. So if we become products of our environment reflects, right, the incoherence of this quote unquote apostasy that is presenting itself as organized religion or righteousness. You know what I'm saying? You can't learn how to do the right thing looking at these people. You can't learn how to walk in the right way by following the footsteps of these people because they're very deceitful. So these resolves that you have, these principles that you have to upkeep have to be internalized. They have to be prioritized and personalized to yourself because you're not necessarily always getting the example in society of how to do it the right way. So that even means that you even have to become more comfortable with your own inner voice. You have to become more of a fan of your inner dialogue in yourself. You have to be your own personal projector, right? And see yourself in the most loftiest of ways and position, counter and contrary to what society tells you about yourself, because they're not going to give you this. You know what I'm saying? But they never will show you, quote unquote, the right way. You have to establish these things for yourself. You have to have that inner eye. You have to have that resolve to follow your own personal directions. You are dropping the breadcrumbs from yourself that you end up following. Don't follow no other man. Damn sure don't follow no system. Don't follow no apostasy. Don't follow no organized religion if you don't have a clear and concise understanding about where it ultimately is heading. Melanated black people don't have an eschatology. They don't. I haven't gone to the black church and they said, "Yo, we dealing with end time prophecies and it's gonna end like this, and Jesus gonna come back with these little chubby melanated cherubim, and you know what I'm saying? We're gonna vanquish the white man as the devil and ride away on pale horses forever." I never heard it. I ain't seen it illustrated. Nigga never put it in song. You know what I'm saying? So where have we been exposed to this? Right? We don't have an eschatology. Don't buy into their eschatology about the end of the world prophecies and shit like that. Them is people dealing with mental fragilities and they're terrified. They're terrified that their dirt is gonna catch up with them. So they always are looking and projecting something to be the ending of something. Um, for people that have been here forever, we don't deal with finality, right? Recycles, yeah, things go and they come and they renew themselves and refurbish themselves, but we don't be dealing with one and done. You know what I'm saying? We know too much about the reality of the situation, you know, in the depths of our bones and our chromosomes to know that it'll never be over. Uh, let's revisit this passage. It keeps popping up. 2 Samuels 11:3. There's no 11:30 in 2 Samuels. David and Bathsheba. We'll go through this again, right? It never gets old, I guess. You know what I'm saying? And it's worthwhile noting that Solomon is the daughter of Bathsheba. They lost their firstborn, right? They lost their firstborn, which is telling, right? Sins of the Father. I was going to name this program today Sins of the Father. I might still name it that We'll see. Sins of the father, right? Falling on the shoulders of their children. Lord, Lord, Lord. Today we'll talk about David and Solomon. Tomorrow we'll talk about somebody else. David and Bathsheba. One evening, David got up from his bed and strolled around on the roof of the palace. And from the roof, he saw a woman bathing, a very beautiful woman. She was scrumptious. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and he was told, "This is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. And when she came to him, he slept with her. Damn, that was easy. Now she had just purified herself from her uncleanliness. Then she returned home. God damn it. Yeah, then he put a whole seed in her. You feel me? Yeah, man. This nigga was a home wrecker. Then he lined her husband up and got her husband sent up. You know what I'm saying? So he got Saul sent up. He got Uriah sent up. And then his son from this marriage ends up being Solomon. And Solomon is the first one who gives Makeba a date rape pill, spiked her drink, and put a seed in her, and that seed becomes Menelik. So now we're talking about two contrasting bloodlines that have become the Davidic bloodline and the Solomonic bloodline, and both of them were born out of inequity and deceit. Right? But these are the bloodlines that the Messiahs come from. Or these messianic energies or these messianic forces that's supposed to embody all righteousness. When this book is replete with birthright theft, deceit, rape, the whole narrative is replete in deceit. From Abram to Jacob to David to Solomon. Psalm 51:1. For the choir master, a psalm of David. When Nathan the prophet came to him after his adultery with Bathsheba, have mercy on me, O God, according to your loving devotion, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions, wash me clean of my iniquity, and cleanse from me my sin. So the vow that was broken by the wife, by Bathsheba, when the woman breaks the vow and when the man breaks the vow, does that put the other person in harm, in jeopardy? If the vow is what initially is creating, think about it like a cosmic force field around you, a protectorate. You know what I'm saying? A protectorate. You know, if a man is leaving the home and he's made a vow to return to that home, and that home becomes his projection, that home becomes his anchor. You feel me? And he's out here in the world doing whatever, but he has to project himself back to that home at some point in the future. Right? If that vow becomes breaking, does that force field also diminish? Does that boomerang become compromised? Right? Is that ultimately the things that end up, again, holes in the aura that end up to become the things that do you in the long run, because we out here breaking these vows? And adultery is one of the main vows that get broken that you can't unbreak per se, because they can't make their mind up in the book about which one is which. But the person who becomes God favorite, right, is the person who breaks the vow that's most integral, right, which is the vow of marriage, and the favorite of him being David, where he rests his laurels because he finds the most qualified in the form of David. But David is an adulterer and a murderer, scheming, lying, conniving, right? God is willing to give him everything, but he wants what other men have. He wanted what Saul had, and he wanted what Uriah had. But God he was the favorite of God. And this starts the lineage of the children that are allegedly the chosens or the favorites of God. And you see how these niggas do, right? You see how these niggas do out here in the world right now. Even if they're out here imitating the originals, you still take on the energy of the shit that you are cosplaying. And I'm not in judgment. I'm just seeing it for what it is. 1 Kings 11:30, Jeroboam's rebellion. During that time, the prophet Ahijah the Silonite met Jeroboam on the road as he was going out of Jerusalem. Now Ahijah had wrapped himself in a new cloak, and the two of them were alone in the open field. And Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing, tore it into 12 pieces, and said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Behold, I will tear the kingdom out of the hands of Solomon, and I will give you 10 tribes." 1 Samuel's 24:4. So David's men said to him, "This is the day about which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do with him as you wish." Pause. Then David crept up and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Afterward, David's conscience was stricken because he had cut off the corner of Saul's robe. Right? So they were scheming. These are some scheming niggas from the gate, right? Deceitful, scheming, right up underneath you. And this is God's favorite. And not only God's, right? But the communities as well. I don't get no points talking crazy about David. Because that's people's favorites, right? You start taking pegs out of the ladder and everything collapses. Hence the fact that I named it romanticized religions. We romanticize these figures and we're not looking at them with clear, concise, and coherent eyes. And what do they tell me? Oh, bro, you're being judgmental. You don't know enough. You should fall back. You know what I'm saying? Because what they meant was, yeah, okay, romanticized religions. These are Roman antics, right? This is how Rome got down. And you wonder why, right? 2 Kings 11:3. Athaliah and Joash. But Josheba, daughter of King Joram, the sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from amongst the sons of the king who were being murdered. She put him and his nurse in a bedroom to hide him from Athaliah, and he was not killed. And Joash remained hidden with his nurse in the house of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. Right? 1 Kings 139. Zodok the priest took the horn of oil from the tabernacle and anointed Solomon. Then they blew the ram's horn, and all of the people proclaimed, "Long live King Solomon." One Chronicles, right? 1 Chronicles. Keep it moving. Y'all all right? 1 Chronicles 11:30. David's mighty men. Okay. So we start reading off David's hitters, his mighty men, because at one point he was a hitter, so he kept the best hitters around him. And Sibbecai the Hushathite, Eli, the Ahohite, Maharai, the Netiphathite, Heled, son of Baana, the Netiphathite, Athai, son of Rabbi from Gibeah of the Benjamites, Benai, the Parathonite, cross-reference 1 Chronicles 12:1. Now these were the men who came to David at Ziklag while he was still banished from the presence of Saul, son of Kish. They were amongst the mighty men who helped him in battle. They were archers using both the right and left hands to sling stones and shoot arrows. And they were Saul's kinsmen from Benjamin. So again, he amassed an amazing team of hitters and mercenaries to put in that work. And they ultimately, like how they did what Tony's, like how Scarface did in Tony Montana did in Scarface when he ends up, what's homie's name that they had to they did in. Look, long story short, man, they was into snake activity. You know what I'm saying? And he took the boss out. Feel me? And he used his own niggas to do it. Right? They was cutthroat. 2 Chronicles 11:3. And these books have been rewritten to reflect a different narrative, to sanitize, what otherwise would be looked at as very ugly activity, unbecoming of people who are considered to be the children of the Most High. Right? Because these was the decisions that men made for power. This is not stuff that was ordained, if you will, by God to say, this is the way that the order is. No, these were men snaking other men, taking power from them and assuming their rightful positions, right? Hit off of some pre-owned cat, shit like that, right? Yes, all from being weak, all from being victims of their own flesh and their desires and their willingness to do, once again, like I said, things that are unbecoming righteous men in order to feed your desires, right? Because you found yourself in a position to do so. Abuses of power, okay? Abuses of power. And now we are replete with full-time examples every day of what abuses of power ultimately look like. We can see it in administration every day. 2 Chronicles 11:3. Shemaiah's prophecy. But the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, the man of God. Tell Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, and all of the Israelites in Judah and Benjamin, that this is what the Lord says. You are not to go up and fight against your brothers. Each of you must return home, for this word is from me. So they listened to the words of the Lord and turned back from going against Jeroboam. So God would have to intervene every now and then on behalf of his own children who were obviously following dictates that were not ordained by the Most High. They weren't following the dictates. They weren't following the script that came from the creator, if you will. They were following the plans of a man who was consolidating power and utilizing religion as a cover, right, to run ramshod over other people's shit. Okay. and again, we have so many examples in today's world that we can compare and contrast to. We're looking at it in real time as if these scriptures were written for today, right? Shout out to Bobby Hemming. It's given us so much context. It's prepared us to have a mentality to be able to see these things for what it is, to decipher it, to properly navigate our way through it, and not be so boggled down by the emotions of what it is that we see. Feel me? This is my prayer for us. This is my prayer for us, right? That we always are above. We're riding above the wave and not getting washed up underneath it. You know what I'm saying? Not being drowned by it because we were unprepared and we got caught off of you know, they caught us off guard. Nothing that's taking place should catch you off guard. Right? We've been prepared for this. 1 Kings 11:11. Then the Lord said to Solomon, because you have done this and have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. Nevertheless, for the sake of your father David, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom away from him. I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. Um, so again, sins of the father, right? Visiting the children. David did wild shit. You know what I'm saying? Solomon did wild shit. And rather than God spanking, because God wanted to be impervious and he wanted to be blind to the inequities and injustices that David participated in, which was the breaking of the main vow, which was adultery, right? Let us not even go back to talk about Cain and the establishment of the craft of the driller, of the spinner, of the killer, and how that took precedence, right? We'll get back to that. But let's just go into the breaking of this particular vow and how God wasn't willing to see David for who and what he was, right? But he caught Solomon red-handed. But instead of spanking Solomon, the sins of the father visit the son. So Rehoboam, right, who was the son of quote unquote Solomon, he would have the stronghold of kingdoms ripped away from him and spread sparingly amongst his brethren. Okay. All right, let's keep it moving. Sins of the father. Sins of the father. You know, like how the church is willing to turn their eyes right now and not look at Trump for what the facts are, what the receipts show, right? You have not heard the Christian church or the evangelicals come out and say, that's some nasty shit, President Trump. Like, what was you over there doing? You wasn't, no matter how distasteful he gets, no matter how, off brand his behavior is, the people who have castigated and promoted this man to be the second coming of whatever, they're awfully quiet about his indiscretions, right? It's almost as if he gets impunity. Yeah, 501c3, all right. Nehemiah 11:30, residents outside of Jerusalem. Okay, they just give a whole. They're giving us all these lineages. I'm gonna skip that. I don't see nothing here that we need to. Well, there's a cross reference. I want to hit on this. 2 Samuel's 5:18. Right now, the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired to the Lord, should I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand? Go up, replied the Lord, for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hand. So David went to Baal Perazim, where he defeated the Philistines and said, Like a bursting flood, the Lord has burst out against my enemies before me. So he called that place Baal Perazim. It's worth noting again that when we speak about the Philistines, they are connected somewhat to the Babylonians, hence the fact that the battle would take place at Baal Perazim, because Baal is the god of the Babylonians. Um, Abram is the Babylonian himself, him coming from Ur of Chaldea. The Chaldeans are Babylonians, right? This is all black on black violence, by the way, mind you, right? Because you can't have it where the Israelites is melanated, but the Philistines ain't, and the Philistines is attached to the Phoenicians. Can't have it like that. A genius. This is all black on black. Yes, and the Philistines are giants, so you're gonna tell me what they reptilians, they Nephilims, they are the Anunnaki? No, nigga, they're melanated, niggers. And we over here clapping, cheering, black on black violence. Job and land theft. Let's go to Job 11:3. There's no 11:30 in Job. Zophar rebukes Job. Should this stream of words go unanswered and such a speaker be vindicated? Should your babbling put others to silence? Will you scoff without rebuke? You have said, my doctrine is sound, and I am pure in your sight. We'll do a cross reference and then keep it moving. Proverbs 18:7. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. Woo! Ugh, Jesus Christ. Let's repeat that. That sounds crazy. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. Proverbs 29:11. A fool vents all his anger, but a wise man holds it back. Another one, Psalm 73:8. They mock and speak with malice. With arrogance, they threaten oppression. They set their mouths against the heavens and their tongues strut across the earth. Oh, visuals is crazy on that. Got to feed that to the GPT. All right. We're going to go to Psalms. Yeah, be very careful what you say. Again, and this goes into the self vows that we find ourselves taking, even when we don't know that we're making soul contracts by the words that we speak. Be very careful what you say, right? Your tongue is literally soul tying you to contracts. You know what I'm saying? Making them and breaking them at all times. The less words, the better, because you can manage your words. You can manage your mouth. If you have the capacity to do so, because everyone does not. The messenger himself of the brother named Elijah Muhammad said, think 5 times before you speak. Now, everyone does not have the capacity to do so. Like, take me, for instance, my human design, right? My human design, I have an open crystal. So you have 2 crystals that you're formed out of. One of the top is the head is the crystal, and I have an open crystal, which means I have an open mind, not a closed mind, right? So I don't think a lot about what I'm going to say. Mainly, I'm freestyling. And then when I hear myself say it, if it sounds true to me, if it resonates to me as truth, then I crystallize it and almost become the word. That's just how my human design works. So I'm not going to think 5 times before I say something. I'm going to say something and think 5 times about it. You know what I'm saying? And the more that I hear it and the more that I believe it, the more real it becomes. That's how my human design works. Other people are different. So if you have the capacity to manage your words, manage your mouth, think about it before you say it, even better. The less is more. Psalms 11:3. In the Lord I take refuge. For behold, the wicked bend their bows. They set their arrow on a string to shoot from the shadows at the upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is on his heavenly throne. His eyes are watching closely. They examine the sons of men, right? Shout out to all of the Sagittariuses. All right. We are in Sagittarius season. Okay. We are in Sagittarius season. Shout out to Sagittarius. Y'all are something else. No, I really do respect Sagittarius. Y'all different. Isaiah 59:14 as a cross reference, and we'll keep it moving after this. So justice is turned away and righteousness stands at a distance, for truth has stumbled in the public square and honesty cannot enter. Truth is missing, and whoever turns from evil becomes prey. The Lord looked and was displeased, and there was no justice. You know how I translate this for today's if I was to take scripture and upgrade it to today to see how it's speaking to us, the public square today is Twitter, right? Twitter is a digital public square. Okay. Um, when they did that release last week, when they exposed where people are broadcasting from, right? Truth has stumbled in the public square. So we thought that we were having real-time conversations in the public square with people who actually had matters that were near and dear to their heart, that were pressed upon them. We thought we were having real-time engagement because people's emotions were definitely involved, invested. You know what I'm saying? People emotionally were invested in these dialogues and these diatribes, these back and forth debates and things of that nature. Some of this stuff has even influenced elections, the way that people think, and that impacts and affects the way that people act. And the way that people act is going to definitely impact, the way that people plan for the future and things of that nature. So people were being duped and deceived by bots, right? Justice is turned away and righteousness stands at a distance. For truth has stumbled in the public square and honesty cannot enter. So there cannot necessarily be honest discourse back and forth with people who don't have ponies in the race enough to qualify why they're so interested in topics that have nothing to do with them per se, right? Such as these national elections, if you will. Even though that's a very arrogant stance, and I don't want to cast myself in the same light as these other people, because everything that happens in this country affects the world, right? And this country has to take responsibility that the things that they discourse and discuss in the public square impact this planet. So I do think that people should participate globally in the conversation. You should just be honest and forthright about where you're from and what you represent, right? So we can register um the input. It can represent who you are, where you're from, rather than posing as somebody else to get a point across. You know what I'm saying? Because now everything is muddied in the public square, and there's a level of distrust where nobody trusts one another, but yet everyone seems to be screaming at one another at a time when they should operate in a lot more silence so they can see what's going on. So they can see what's going on. Because it's so easy for this administration to spin the populace with spin a narrative, right? Let me send an MK Ultra to DC to change the conversation. I mean, this shit is just so predictable. It's so predictable. Let's go to Proverbs 11:30. Dishonest scales, we're right back there in dishonest scales. We can't seem to get out of dishonest scales all month we've been here. This is a long ass chapter because it keeps coming back to dishonest scales, right? I'm gonna name a program now. Let me write this down because it's begging to be used as a title. Dishonest scales. He who brings trouble on his house will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise, right? If the righteous receive their due on earth, how much more the ungodly and the sinner? Okay, let's unpack that. If the righteous receive their due on earth, how much more the ungodly and the sinner? Well, we can look around and we can see that reward has been measured on a dishonest scale because there are people that are running around with material gains that are ill-gotten that seem to be impervious to justice because they didn't ran it up in the billions, even the trillions, right? So what metric is utilized, right, to measure people's merit in society if the dollar is the thing that you're measuring it by, right? That can't be the metric. Because if that were the metric, then it's definitely an imbalanced scale. Definitely an imbalanced scale. And they say that the do-gooders and the nice guys finish last, right? It's almost like this dichotomy of God and the devil, where the devil is out here balling out on planet Earth. It should be your prison, nigga. It's like you in Club Fed while God is scrambling and shit to make snap payments. But the devil is making, devil got $1 trillion pay packages. So I guess that's the sin is you got $1 trillion and you could feed everybody on the planet a few times over. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Matthew 7:16, we'll do a cross-reference and then keep it moving. By their fruit you will recognize them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Right? I could go in on that verse. Again, sins of the father. Should have really named it that today. There's so many echoes. Sins of the father. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Indeed, figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor grapes from brambles. A good man brings good things out of the good treasure of his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil treasure of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Right? And that's deep. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So the heart and the mouth are made from the same material, they're made from the same collagen. You know what I'm saying? And they often say that the quality of your gums match the actual state of your heart, condition wise. That's deep. That's deep. Ecclesiastes 11:3. Cast your bread upon the waters. Divide your portion amongst 7 or even 8, for you do not know what disaster may befall the land. If the clouds are full, they will pour out rain upon the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. He who watches the wind will not fail to sow, and he who observes the cloud, oh, he who watches the wind will fail to sow, and he who observes the clouds will fail to reap. Get your head out of the cloud. You know what I'm saying? Your pie is not in the sky, my nigga. It's underneath your feet, right? Focus on the land. Focus on the land that you're in. Look, your feet can't be on one continent and your brain in the other one, right? You have to be fully present where you are presently at, so you can create that quantum bridge to be effective in continents where your heart might be. But if your foot is on this continent, nigga, your head should be on this continent too, doing the business of the land, establishing the law of the land. And then you can create and build a quantum bridge somewhere else so you can bring abundance to that place. But you shouldn't be separated. Your feet shouldn't be here on this continent and your mind is on another continent, my nigga. Right? These are unique scenarios only to us because of the era and the time that we live in. Right? People in different times were only focused on where they were at, doing the things that they were doing to consolidate, you know what I'm saying? Power and you know, prestige for some people, food, opportunity. You feel me? We seem very much scattered as a people, attempting, you know, you you're not gonna catch two running rabbits. My brother says it a lot more colorful. I know I'm jacking it up. I ain't making it sound as exciting, but in so many words, you know, the person who chases two rabbits catches none. Feel me? The person who chases two rabbits catches none. Um, there's a lot of focus that's required of us right underneath our feet, right in our backyard right now. And this is, I'm not saying be dismissive of other places. I'm not saying turn your back on them. I'm just saying, yo, it's work that needs to be done wherever you physically are at, right? Focus on that, work on that, and then we can, you know, meet at the top and compare notes. Hosea 10:12 is a cross reference. Sow for yourselves righteousness and reap the fruit of loving devotion. Break up your unplowed ground, for it is time to seek the Lord until he comes and sends righteousness upon you like rain. You have plowed wickedness and reaped injustice. You have eaten the fruit of lies. Because you have trusted in your own way and in the multitude of your mighty men, yada, yada, yada. But Kina ain't worried about what we got going on as their top priority, right? And look, they have, look at the leaps and the bounds that they have taken. And in order to extend the hand to other people in other places, they had to have a foundation. They had to be grounded in their work first, right? They had to secure their own sovereignty, if you will. They had to secure their own borders, if you will. They had to secure what they did for their people before they can open up their doors and invite somebody else in. Right? We got work to do wherever we are at before we start becoming, you know, the ambassadors of the planet, you know? And the planet needs our they need our love. They need our, you know, assistance. But so do we. We need our own assistance. We need our own love. We need our own commitments. We need vows to this land, whatever land you're on, needs your help to remind itself of its connection and its covenant to the people who occupy that said land. The root of Jesse, Isaiah 11:3, the spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and strength, the spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what his eyes see. He will not decide by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he will judge the poor, and with equity he will decide for the lowly of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth and slay the wicked with the breath of his lips. Right? Speak the truth. Shame the devil. Let's go to Jeremiah. Another 11:3 chapter. The broken covenant. Right back where we started. Listen to the words of this covenant and tell them to the men of Judah and the residents of Jerusalem. You must tell them that this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Cursed is the man who does not obey the words of this covenant, which I commanded your forefathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, out of the iron furnace, saying, obey me and do everything I command you, and you will be my people, and I will be your God. Right? How's that working out? How's that working out? Ezekiel, let's take it to Ezekiel 11. Ezekiel 11, 11:3. Evil in high places. And the Lord said to me, son of man, these are the men who plot evil and give wicked counsel in this city. They are saying, is not the time near to build houses? The city is the cooking pot, and we are the meat. Therefore prophesy against them. Prophecy, O son of man. Micah 3:11 as a cross reference. Her leaders judge for a bribe, her priests teach for a price, and her prophets practice divination for money. Yet they lean upon the Lord, saying, is not the Lord amongst us? No disaster can come upon us. My nigga. Let's read that again, right? Because this is the arrogance that is being postured in this country at this time as well. Her leaders judge for a bribe. Her priests teach for a price, and her prophets practice divination for money. Yet they lean upon the Lord, saying, is not the Lord amongst us? No disaster can come upon us. Right? So, in essence, it's like they got the melanated people here, right, in the proverbial captivity, and they know that we bring with us a blessings and a providence. So on behalf that they are in the promised land, they feel that they can act a fool because certain judgment will not come upon us as a body of people, right? And they being in proximity to us are benefiting from that covering and that covenant and that level of providence. You understand? Stop covering them with your blessings. Stop extending to them your covenant. Take back what is yours. Just call it back to yourself. You don't even have to physically do anything other than proclaiming it and calling it back to yourself and saying, I'm pulling the covers, right? They no longer get to share in the covering. They no longer get to participate in the proximity to this covenant. How do you remove it? Just by proclaiming it the same way that I'm saying it. Get outside and talk to yourself. Yes, you've been finessed for your protection for way too long and then disrespected on account of it as if it's not you, right? That's holding this shit up because you truly are the chosen elect. Daniel's 11:30, kings of the south and the north. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time will not be like the first. Ships of Kittim will come against him, and he will lose heart. Then he will turn back and rage against the holy covenant and do damage. So he will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. His forces will rise up and desecrate the temple fortress. They will abolish the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation. You know what I'm saying? The abomination of desolation. Leave him to his own devices and watch him suffer the abomination of desolation, right? And they have the nerve to propagate white flight when you come around, as if you don't bring your covenant with you, if you don't bring your providence with you, as if you don't bring your covenant with you, right? This was paradise over here. It was called the land of milk and honey. We ain't need them. We ain't need white Jesus, right? To benefit from the blessings and the providence and the covenant. Trail of Tea, they want to run you off of a land that has gold in it because they found gold, only to run you into land that's full of oil. You have providence, my nigga. If you to turn that into Black Wall Street was only one 40-acre plot of land, right? And our people will promise, 40 acres per quote unquote ex-slave, if you will. That's providence. Trying to run you off of a land because they found gold, only to run you into the land full of oil, right? That they consider to be a barren land. They didn't do their homework, right? But that can't be the hand of a people who are operating the hand of the Most High. Those are fools, right? And when are we gonna stop playing foolish games? Right? When are we gonna stop playing these foolish games? And yes, rest in peace to the elder who just made transition at the age of 111, being a last survivor of that era, of that epoch. You know what I'm saying? This was not 3 lifetimes ago, y'all. This is still within the grasp of our lifetime that these people were still alive that have experienced this. Hosea 11:3, out of Egypt I called my son, but the more I called Israel, the farther they departed from me. They sacrificed to the Baals and burned incense to carve images, right? Again, the heavy reiteration of burning incense, because when you look at the etymology of the word God itself, it means 3 things. It means the burning of incense, it means to invoke, and it means to pour libation. That's what the etymology of the word means, right? But he's always qualming and quipping about them burning incense to other gods. And incense act as a supplicant, right? And what is a supplicant? It's a sweet aroma because you have to attract the nose of God to pay attention to your prayers. So they made the prayers more sweet, right? And more aromatic going up by burning incense. So the prayers sounded and smelled sweeter to gain the attention and the attraction of quote unquote said God that they were attempting to connect with. Peace, my brother. Right? So out of Egypt, I called my son. That is in Hosea 11:3. But the more I called Israel, the farther they departed from me. They sacrificed to the Baals and burnt incense to carve images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them in my arms, but they never realized that it was I who healed them. I led them with cords of kindness, with ropes of love. I lifted the yoke from their necks and bent down to feed them. You know what I'm saying? Boy, they make him it sound so bad. Like it was such a burden on them people. You feel me? Kemet was a welfare state, right? Kemet provided food, clothing, housing, and shelter. You know what I'm saying? And it was a cosmopolitan state. It allowed them people to practice their religion freely. It wasn't a suppressive state. It was an abundance. They had enough to give. It was a welfare state. Boy, the people sure do sound unappreciative. Zechariah, we're gonna go to Zechariah 11. Okay. Zechariah 11:3. See what we get out of this. The doomed flock. Well, O cypress, for the cedars have fallen, the majestic trees are ruined. Well, O oaks of Bashan, for the dense forest has been cut down. Listen to the wailing of the shepherds, for their glory is in ruins. Listen to the roaring of the young lions, for the thickets of the Jordan are destroyed. This is what the Lord my God says: pasture the flock marked for slaughter. Pasture the flock marked for slaughter. Okay, shit be changing up, i.e., right? Things can change like that. Okay. Jeremiah 23:1. Woe to the shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, declares the Lord. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says about the shepherds who tend my people. You have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not attended to them. Behold, I will attend to you for the evils of your deeds, declares the Lord. All right, we're going to keep it moving. This is Zechariah. Now we are going to go to Matthew. We are in the New Testament now. Okay. We in Matthew. 11. Let's see, we got 11:30 in Matthew's. Yep. It ends on 11:30. So this is the last verse in Matthew's 11 is 11:30. Rest for the weary. Okay. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Okay. We're going to do a cross reference and keep it moving. Jeremiah 6:16. This is what the Lord says: stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths. Where is the good way? Then walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. Right? Stand at the crossroads and call on Eshu to get the right directional path. Following the ways of your ancestors. They said go back to the ancient ways. You feel me? But people won't follow that path for whatever reason. Jesus' authority is challenged. We in Mark 11:30. I will ask you one question, Jesus replied, and if you answer me, I will tell you by what authority I am doing these things. John's baptism, was it from heaven or from men? Answer me. They deliberated amongst themselves what they should answer. If we say from heaven, he will ask, why then did you not believe him? All right, we'll do a cross reference. Matthew 31:13. At that time, Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John, but John tried to prevent him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? Let it be so now, Jesus replied. It is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness in this way. Then John permitted him. All right. Luke. Let's go to Luke 11:30. Luke 11:30, y'all. The sign of Jonah. As the crowds were increasing, Jesus said, this is a wicked generation. It demands a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. For as Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites, so the Son of Man will be assigned to his generation. The queen of the south will rise at the judgment with the men of this generation and condemn them. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, right? And now one greater than Solomon is here. So when they make reference to the quote unquote queen of the south, they're speaking about Makeba, right? And the south that they're speaking about is the Cushite kingdom or Ethiopia. Um, and it's so dramatic. They said that it was the ends of the earth. Again, these are people that have must had a very limited understanding about the exact geography of the planet, but yet they will tell you that God flooded the entire planet, but they just found out about the Western Hemisphere in the 1400s, my nigga, the 1500s. They're mad latecomers. The planet has been here for millions of years, and you just now finding out that there's another side to it. And when you got over there was an advanced civilization, a few of them. There was already over here with advanced science and architecture and arts and a superior mathematical calligraphical system, right? How, Sway? Some of the things that they say about our people need to be amended because these lies that we have been sold, these lies that have been propagated, right? So they can advance anglicized, romanticized, Romanized religion has created mental myopia with ourselves where we hate where we come from, where we hate, we have a distrust, we have a disdain, and we have a distaste for things that are indigenous and antiquated because we bought into this fable of paganism where we're looking down on these people as if they're less than us or as if they needed Jesus, like they told you that you needed it, right? These are the things that are threatening the most to our psychology and the way that we identify ourselves. Feel me? We're not supposed to be in a situation, in a position that we're in, but we find ourselves in that situation because we can't see ourselves for who we are unless it's told to us by someone who don't look like us, who does not have our higher selves and their higher judgment. That's a crime within itself. We need to shake up out of that shit. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. John 11:30, Jesus comforts Martha and Mary. And when Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were in the house consoling Mary saw how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. Right? John 10:40. Then Jesus went back across the Jordan to the place where John had first been baptized. And he stayed there. Many came to him and said, although John never performed a sign, everything he said about this man was true. And many in that place believed in Jesus. So John was the harbinger. John was saying, that there was going to be a time when a man would come who would be greater than him. And, when we understand the Gnostic principles of quote unquote baptism and the fact that baptism is ancient, it's antiquated, it predates religion itself. You know, these are definitely some of the pagan rites and rituals that were brought into what Paul ultimately creates in terms of Christianity. The Eucharist also is one of those things that he would pick up in his travels from quote unquote pagan tribes that he encountered that were of the Gentilian persuasion. He wanted to create what he was coalition building. So he had to bring in as many people as possible. So he had to make a lot of concessions, right? To be like, all right, you could bring that with you too. And that's how they got to a lot of that stuff. The church at Antioch. We're in Acts 11:30. So the disciples, each according to his ability, decided to send relief to the brothers living in Judea. This they did, sending their gifts to the elders with Barnabas and Saul. Okay, so this is when Paul was running around with Barnabas, and they were proselytizing the good word. They were spreading the gospel. Okay, Acts 4:35, and lay him at the apostles' feet for distribution to anyone as he had need. Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles called Barnabas, meaning son of encouragement, sold a field he owned, brought the money, and laid it at the apostles' feet. Let's do another cross reference before we keep it moving. Acts 6:1. In those days when the disciples were increasing in number, the Grecian Jews amongst them began to grumble against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So the 12 summoned all of the disciples and said, "It is unacceptable for us to neglect the word of God in order to wait on tables. Therefore, brothers, select from amongst you 7 men, confirmed to be full of the Spirit and wisdom. We will assign this responsibility to them." Right? So it's just like this information, and there are people that are qualified, to get outside and get out there and proselytize the good news of whatever this information is that we represent as a community, whatever this light is that we contain, that we feel will help buffer the darkness that has encapsulated this globe. But there's certain people that have the ability to do that, but they too busy over here paying bills, working a 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? Or they might be making TikTok shorts, but you like, damn, homie, you need to make a whole documentary and then maybe a feature film because you're good at what you do, right? Original Black God should have a budget to make a full-length film for what it is that he's doing for our consciousness, the way he used AI to storytell. Shit like that. That's proselytizing of these days and times. That's the apostles of these days and times getting this information out, utilizing the means and the mechanisms and the machinations that we have to tell these stories. All Israel shall be saved. This is Romans 11:30. For God's gifts and his calls are irrevocable. For God's gifts and his calls are irrevocable. Just as you who formerly disobeyed God have now received mercy through their disobedience, so they too have now disobeyed, in order that they too may now receive mercy through the mercy shown to you, right? So they say God is a merciful God and all forgiving. You know what I'm saying? So you can never necessarily be down and out because there's always a redemptive factor of you being able to come back and be redeemed and forgiven and start anew, right? And swing for the fence, right? Titus 3:3 as a cross reference, because I don't often get into Titus. For at one time we too were foolish, disobedient, misled, and enslaved to all sorts of desires and pleasures, living in malice and envy, being hated and hating one another. But when the kindness of God our Savior and his love for mankind appeared, he saved us not by the righteous deeds we had done, but according to his mercy through the washing of new birth and renewal by the Holy Spirit. You know, again, shout out to the Professor Jiang, I believe you pronounce his name. He's really been unpacking and addressing a lot of the contradictions between Jesus and Paul and the way that Paul hijacked the teachings of Jesus. Whereas Jesus's word was, you know, salvation is open, it's open source to all man. You know what I'm saying? And you get it by doing the works. Whereas Paul comes along and he says redemption is open to all men and fuck the works. You know what I'm saying? The work or the deed that man is responsible for is to acknowledge and accept Jesus Christ as the Savior, and that's where the redemption comes from. Those are two contrasting set of criteria, if you will. Very, very, very contrasting two set of criteria. 1 Corinthians 11:30, sharing in the Lord's Supper. For anyone who eats and drinks without recognizing the body eats and drinks judgment on himself. That is why many amongst you are weak and sick, and a number of you have fallen asleep. Itis. Now, if we judged ourselves properly, we would not come under judgment. Again, you are only qualified to judge you. It's impossible for you to judge somebody else because you do not know the criteria. You can't see that person's shadow. You don't know what's behind them. You don't know what led to the decisions that they've made. So how can you make a judgment of that when you don't have the information? You don't have the intel. And your job here is to know thyself, right? The key word in that is thyself. And that's something that people from cradle to the grave go through attempting to maximize. Like for the rest of your time here, you're going to be getting to know yourself, getting to know things about yourself. And when you think that you got it all figured out, that's when it's time for you to go. Right? So where do you have time to judge somebody else? Where did you come into contact with their dossier, their entire file, where you know enough about them to judge them? Don't fall into that trap. That's the trap down here. That's the trap down here. When your ass goes to weigh the heart against the feather, your heart is extra weighty and extra heavy because you took it upon yourself to cast judgment. And that's not your job. You can only judge yourself and your actions because only you know why you do the shit that you do. Or at least that's the job you should be attempting to figure that out in this lifetime. And stop concerning yourself with why other people do what it is that they do, right? While they're getting to know themselves. Yes, discern, don't judge. You know what I'm saying? Have discretions, but not judgments. Free yourself from the prison planet. One Corinthians 5:1. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality amongst you, and of a kind that is intolerable, even amongst pagans. A man has his father's wife, and you are proud. Shouldn't you rather have been stricken with grief and have removed from your fellowship the man who did this? Although I am absent from you in body, I am present with you in spirit, and I have already pronounced judgment on the one who did this, just as if I was present. And again, it leaves a very ethical, biblical issue open-ended, that if God is a redeeming God, if God is a forgiving God, if God is a merciful God, when does he render judgment? You know what I'm saying? When do you allow that person no more rope to find their way back home by asking for forgiveness, right? When does he met out judgment? Because they say that karma's swift, right? They say that karma's swift and you can't necessarily avoid karma. So what's the sense of being remorseful and making an atonement? What's the sense of asking for forgiveness if you can't dodge karma? If that's the most natural process. Paul's suffering and service, 2 Corinthians 11:30. Who was weak and I am not weak? Who was led into sin and I do not burn with grief? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The God and Father of the Lord Jesus, who is forever worthy of praise, know that I am not lying. Right? 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest on me. That is why, for the sake of Christ, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, and hardships, and persecutions, and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. This don't sound like the God of the Bible, though, right? Who is very jealous, who you can't say certain things about. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't take too well to criticism, back talk, right? I can see myself in this passage as of lately, especially during these sermons. I feel that being more vulnerable to the things that I'm not necessarily perfected in gives me a level of freedom that frees me up from any self-judgment. You know what I mean? And if I'm free from judging myself, then the last thing I'm concerned with is how someone else perceives or sees me. You know what I'm saying? Um, I'm free from that. Hold on one second. Yes, sir. Shatas. All right, I'm on my sermon, but I'm listening. Come on. Peace, Shatas. How you, my brother? Yes, sir, my brother. Where they got you at? You where? Okay, okay. If Red has your information, okay. Word. Wow. Yeah, seen him at the service. Bless the dead, brother. Yeah, dope. But yeah, I'm in the middle of a sermon. I'm gonna grab the information from Red. Oh, y'all got tablets? Okay. I appreciate you. I got you, my brother. Okay. Right. Keeping that workout consistent. Guys to know that. All right. So I look forward to it. Appreciate you, brother. All right. Indeed, God. Peace. My bad, y'all. Got a call from the feds, man. And I had to honor that brother's, Mm. 1 Corinthians 1:27. But God chose the foolish things in the world to shame the wise, but God chose the weak things in the world to shame the strong. He chose the lowly and despised things of the world and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast in his presence. Um, and that's very telling and is very key that I was speaking about the vulnerability factor, the fact that I do find myself fallible in this mortal shell, in this mortal life. And I find that there's more value being human and vulnerable and, declaring the things that, I'm saying, that I myself am still working through as a man, as opposed to always packaging and presenting myself, I'm saying, in my God form. I'm still a work. I'm still working. I'm still a work in progress. And I'm very much tethered to my past, you know, my friends and the places that I come from, and the decisions, the choices and the decisions that we have made that have impacted our own lives, that have impacted our communities. Um, we don't get to walk away. We don't get to turn our backs on any of those things, right? Still living with them, still living through them. So I think that that's more of an important testimony than always seeming like life is 100% great and good and we've had it all figured out. And I'm saying life is amazing. Life is the pinnacle of beauty, you know what I mean? But it requires much work. And not just in the proclamation of my overstanding of Jesus Christ as the savior. That's not gonna, nigga, where's the works at, right? Where's the works? Like perfection requires much works. Imperfection is a proverbial state of mind that might be fleeting. We might not ever achieve perfection, but these are the things that you strive for, that propels you, that projects you into a state of perfection, regardless of whether you achieve it or not in this lifetime. This is the things that we use as our trajectories, as our directionals. Hebrews 11:30, the faith of many. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after the people had marched around them for 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies in peace, did not perish with those who were disobedient. Right? By faith. Um, Joshua 2:1 as a cross reference. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent two spies from Shittim, saying, "Go inspect the land, especially Jericho." So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. And it was reported to the king of Jericho, "Behold, some men of Israel have come here tonight to spy out the land." So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab and said, "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, for they have come to spy out the whole land." Right? So many times the prostitute has played her part in the Bible. Feel me? They need their own chapter. Because I done seen them mentioned more in the Bible than anything or anyone else representing the feminine. We we need a whole Strong's we need a whole Strong's coordinates to interpret, why prostitutes have such a prominent role in scripture. Revelations 11:3, as we close it out, the two witnesses, right? But exclude the courtyard outside of the temple. Do not measure it, because it has been given over to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months. And I will empower my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These witnesses are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. So that's for you to do your homework with, to figure out allegorically what exactly do they mean when they say two olive trees and two lampstands, right? What allegory is that being made reference to? And that will definitely, create a path for you ultimately to seek some more inner light. If I'm always just giving you the interpretation of what I have learned these things mean, I'm robbing you of the process to go on a journey yourself of self-discovery. Because you might find something totally different, this speaking specifically to who you are in your journey. I don't want to take that from you. Daniel 12:7. And the man dressed in linen who was above the waters of the river raised his right hand and his left hand towards heaven. And I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, it will be for a time and times and half a time when the power of the holy people has finally been shattered. All these things will be completed. Okay. Um, we know that 2,160 years is what's called a galactic year, if you will. That's the precession of an equinox. But there's definitely a key to 1,260 days, allegorically wise, right? Dressed in sackcloth. He ain't got no drip on. You know what I'm saying? Remember, Jesus was a prophet who was skewed all materialism. So they made vows of poverty and shit like that. He was a poor righteous teacher. So they weren't dressing in the drip. They were dressing in the sackcloth, right? They wasn't concerned about their appearance. They was just concerned about their dedication to the word and their work. Opening up and creating a residence by repetition, right? And a frequency, the same way they collapsed those walls of Jericho, because they created a band, a sound wave. Okay. But notice, they constantly make references to that dressing in that linen. You know what I'm saying? Dressing in linen is very key. It's very key. The linen is the conductor. We'll close out by reading an 11:30 in the Quran, right? Just to be fair, let's see if there's any cross correlation of a word that we can extract from the Quranic text as well. Let's get to 11:30. Hud is the name of the chapter. O my people, I do not ask for a payment for this message. My reward is only from Allah. And I will never dismiss the believers, for they will surely meet their Lord. But I can see that you are people acting ignorantly. O my people, who will protect me from Allah if I were to dismiss them? Will you not then be mindful? I do not say to you that I possess Allah's treasure or know the unseen, nor do I claim to be an angel, nor do I say that Allah will never grant goodness to those who you look down upon. Allah knows best what is hidden within them. If I did, then I would truly be one of the wrongdoers. And this is what I'm speaking about in terms of the essence of judgment and why judgment is not the best thing for you to engage in if you do not know everything that there's possibly to know about the topic that you are casting judgment upon, right? You're being fooled and coerced into a process that you have not necessarily been promoted to, that being a universal judge of men, right? I do not say to you that I possess Allah's treasuries or know the unseen, nor do I claim to be an angel, nor do I say that Allah will never grant goodness to those you look down upon. Allah knows best what is hidden within them. If I did, then I would truly be one of the wrongdoers. You know what I'm saying? We can't possibly know what's hidden within, what a person is momentarily going through. Case in point, I use this as a cultural example of something that came across my desk the other day. They were speaking about Burna Boy, right? And interestingly enough, Burna Boy just took Shahada and joined the Ummah. He's a Muslim now, and that's very interesting. with the things that we see going on in Nigeria. That's neither here nor there. They were speaking about a concert that he had in Houston that it bombed, right? Nobody came to the concert, nobody showed up. It was a wash, and he had to cancel some dates on his tour. And they were speaking about, they were showing footage of him castigating someone who came to his concert who was sleeping in the front row, a young lady. And he stopped the show and he made a spectacle of her. You know what I'm saying? Called her out and, wasn't necessarily very accommodating with how he went about and did it. And come to find out, you know, lo and behold, that this young lady was going to the concert because she had just lost the father of her children. So she was, the concert was her escapism. She was coping at the moment. She was going through some real shit. And we don't know what was pulling on her energy. We don't know what she can possibly have been going through. They caused her to fall asleep in the front of this man's concert, but he made it more about him. You know what I'm saying? And he castigated this young woman in front of the world, if you will. And now it seems that energetically he may be paying his price. Now that karma is swift, right? That's not us. That's not on us for judge. That's not on us to judge. That's not on us to pass judgment. That's not on us to point fingers. But as observers, as witnesses, we have the right to make a discernment, right, about the particular situation, or to make a decision because there was a campaign that they launched that they was like, we're not going to support him no more, right? So you're allowed to make a decision along those lines to say, yeah, I don't think that, this person deserves my support either. But then there's something energetic that might definitely be playing itself out in the background where he don't have the same amount of cosmic covering, right, for the endowment of his blessing that he once had, because he's disrupted the field by what they call not being humble, right? So that's neither here nor there. I can be right, I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's just an observation in my level of discernment, but it's not an extension of my judgment because I'm not judging the man. I don't know enough about the situation. The best I can do is speculate. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't qualify anything. So yeah. With that being said, family, as always, if you find it in your heart, you can make a honest and generous donation to us over here. Ms. Harvey 917 is the Cash App. Okay. And that, for the most part, is going to conclude today's presentation. And yeah, y'all, for the family that participated in Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, they have all of these colorful new names that we've managed to come up with to gloss over genocide. Yeah, hopefully you got to see your people. Hopefully y'all got to, reconnect and strengthen those energetic bonds that's so necessary for family to see themselves, to come full circle. There's a lot of planning that should be, being done at a very rudimentary level with family. There's certain bonds and bridges that need to be refortified, and some built, some rebuilt. You feel me? This is a lot. It's a lot. This 2026 is going to be interesting, and we're going to need those who are nearest and dearest to us. It's not going to, definitely, it won't hurt us to become that much more tighter with our friends, with our family, even our friends. You know what I'm saying? and more responsible to our quote unquote fans and followers. And I don't mean that in no facetious way. The people who tap into your network, if you do have a platform, if you do have a network, you are just as responsible for the people who you are speaking to as you are for yourself, right? If that sounds too much of a task for you to undertake, don't even sign up for the job. Because spiritually, at the end of this ride, right, when you got to see your maker, you have to account for every person who you have impacted. And you also have to account for everything that came out of your mouth, the advice that you have given, the information that you have shared, and the direction that you have pointed people in. You are responsible for that. You know what I'm saying? So be very mindful, be very careful, but also, as always, family, give yourself some grace. You have done an amazing job. I'm so thankful, to be here that I can share love and light and time with you. I'm thankful for life. I'm thankful for breath. I'm thankful for family. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm thankful for the skin that I'm in, for the body that I exist in, for the family that I was born to, for the community that I'm part of, for the country that I live in. You know what I'm saying? I'm thankful for all of these things. And I don't want to take any of it for granted, you know? So, with that, once again, peace, love, and light. I appreciate, the time and the dedication that we have spent together on this amazing Sunday. And this concludes episode 139, Romanticized Religions. Peace.